Hi kids, how are you? I hope you had a good week. It wasn't all that good weather-wise, but I hope you got out and had some fun. Did you enjoy last week's lesson in craft? Well, we have another good lesson this week, and I hope you enjoy the craft that we have. Last week we talked about the Apostle Peter. Today we're going to talk about Paul. And in the past we talked about Paul's journeys. Remember, Paul journeyed all around. I have a map here. In fact, I have several of them. And we're going to talk about where Paul started and where he was going. So Paul wanted to go to Rome. So here is where he started, at Caesarea. That's where he started. And he wanted to go way over here to Rome. Can you see that? I hope you can see it anyway. So he started way over here on this side of the Mediterranean. And he wanted to go way over here. See, you can see the boot. Up to Italy and to Rome. So he was going to take a boat, and he took the boat. The first part of his journey was from Caesarea to Sidon. That's one part of the journey. And then he went from Sidon to Myra, which is another part of the journey. See that? And then from Myra to Crete. And then from Crete, well, we'll have to find out what happened. So let's find out, shall we? So I have my Bible, and it's got a great picture of the boat. See the boat that they were on? And it said, "When it was decided that Paul should sail to Italy, they delivered him and certain other prisoners to one called Julius, a centurion of Augustus' forces, boarding a ship of..." Excuse me one moment. Does that happen to you? You get busy talking and you can't get a tickle in your throat? Ship of Adramyttium. They launched forth, meaning to sail along the coast of Asia. So where we saw this on the map, this is Asia. I guess that's what they were talking about. The next day, they touched at Sidon, and Julius courteously gave Paul liberty to go to his friends and refresh himself. When they left there, they sailed along the coast of Cyprus because the winds were contrary. So the winds weren't going in the right direction. They came to Myra and the city of Lycia, where the centurion found a ship from Alexandria sailing to Italy, and he put the prisoners on it. When they had sailed slowly many days without favorable winds, they called to a place that was called the Fair Havens, near a city of Lacia. Much time had passed, and seafaring was now dangerous, for winter was nearly come. So it's really dangerous when you are on the sea to travel in the wintertime, because the seas, that's when the storms come, and the seas get very rough, and it tosses the boats about. Paul warned them, "Sirs, I foresee that this voyage will bring damage and loss, not only of the cargo and ship, but also of our lives." Nevertheless, the centurion believed the captain and the owner of the ship more than he believed Paul. And because the harbor was not well suited to winter, most of the people advised departure. Now, I don't know if you guys have been to Boston, but our Boston Harbor is away from the open ocean. So big boats can go in there and they can spend the winter there. And they're not going to get buffeted about from the open storms, the storms of the open ocean. This harbor was more open to the sea, and it wasn't a good place to stop for the winter. Most of the people advised departure in order, if it were at all possible, to reach Phoenix, which is a harbor of Crete, and to winter there. When the south wind blew softly, thinking that they could reach their goal, they untied and set sail close to Crete. But very soon there rose a mighty gale. The ship was caught and could not face into the wind, so they let it run before it, and running behind a small island called Claudia, they could much work in making fast the ship's boat. When the boat had been taken up, they ran ropes under the ship to secure it. Then, fearing that they might run into the sand, they struck the sails and let the ship drift. Being greatly tossed about by the tempest, the next day they lightened the ship. So the ship's boat that they were talking about in the previous paragraph was the little dinghy that brings them back and forth into the harbor. Into the port. And they were bringing the little dinghy up to the ship. And they were afraid that if they came too close, that little boat would crash into the ship and it would smash up. So they let it go once they got on board. Now they're afraid that the big boat, the big ship, is being tossed about. The following day, with their own hands, they threw out the ship's tackle. But when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and the great storm still raged, all hope of being saved was given up. After going without food for a long time, Paul stood up in the midst of them and said, "Sirs, you should have listened to me and have not loosed from Crete. But now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but only the ship. For there stood by me this night an angel of God, whose I am and whom I serve, saying, 'Fear not, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar. And lo, God has put under your protection all them that sail with you. Therefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, that it shall be even as was told me. However, we must be cast upon a certain island. So there's a picture of the ship being tossed about in the storm. It's pretty scary. It's not a very big ship, and it's being tossed about badly. When the 14th night had come, about midnight, the men of the ship felt that they were drawing near to land. They took soundings, and then cast 4 anchors off the stern. When they had let down the boat, about to flee the ship, Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, "Unless these men stay with the ship, you cannot be saved." Then the soldiers cut the ropes of the boat and let her drift away. While the day was coming on, Paul asked them all to take food, saying, "This day is the 14th day that you have taken nothing. Therefore, I pray you to eat, for this is for your health. For not a hair shall fall from your head of any of you." And when he had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks to God, and when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then they were all of good cheer, and they also took some food. And they were in all 276 souls on that ship. When they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship, casting out the cargo of wheat into the sea. And when it was day, the land was unknown to them, but they saw a creek on the beach, where they planned, if it were possible, to run the ship ashore. So they took up its anchors, loosed the rudder bands, and hoisted the mainsail to the wind, and committing themselves to the sea, made it ashore. And falling onto the shoal, they ran the ship aground. The forepart struck fast and remained immovable, but the after part was broken with a violence of the waves. Now the soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. But the centurion wanted to save Paul, kept them from their plans, and commanded that those who could swim should cast themselves first into the sea and get to land. Then the rest should follow, some on boards and some on broken pieces of the ship. And it came to pass that all escaped safe to land. So can you see this picture? So there's that ship. After the storm, it broke apart, and they all had to jump into the sea. And here's the centurion, or the soldier, watching over them to make sure that they don't escape. After their escape, they found that the island was called Melita or Malta. The natives there showed them much kindness, for they kindled a fire and welcomed them all to it because of rain and the cold. When Paul had gathered a bundle of sticks and laid them on the fire, a viper came out because of the heat and fastened itself to his hands. When the natives saw the poisonous beast hanging from Paul's hand, they said to themselves, "No doubt this man is a murderer, when justice will not permit it to live, although he has escaped the sea." But Paul shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. They looked for him to swell and fall down dead suddenly. But after they had looked a great while, they saw that no harm had come to him. They changed their mind, and they thought that he was a god. So what do you think of this story? There's a little more. Now in the same area were the islands of a chief man of the island, who was named Publius. He welcomed Paul and lodged him courteously for 3 days. The father of Publius lay sick with a fever and the flow of blood, and Paul prayed and healed him. So when this was done, others on the island which had diseases came and were healed. They heaped honors on Paul, and when he departed, they gave him all he needed. After 3 months, he left in a ship for Alexandria, which had wintered in that island. So Paul had quite the adventure. He didn't make it to Rome yet, but he had quite the adventure. And as he had forecasted, none of them died in the shipwreck. So, I hope you liked that story. I did. Now, I have a craft for you, and I hope you like it. It's a boat and so I'm going to show you the templates for it. So here's the people that you can put on the boat. I hope you can see that. It's this light. Can you see the people? You can cut as many people up for the boat, or you can make as many as you'd like. And here is the bottom part of the boat. And here is the sails. Now it's not a big fancy boat, it's a little one. I guess you should look at it this way. Okay, so you saw that? All right, so now I'm going to bring over my craft. Now I didn't take the time to color it in, but the template that I gave you, okay, so here it is. Here's the boat. I'm going to turn the light away so that you guys can see the boat. Okay. All right, there's the boat. Can you see it? And I'm going to turn it around so that you can see that I have actually put people in the boat. See? I have Paul, and I have what I am going to say is the angel that he had in the dream. All right, now I have made my my ocean or my sea, and I put my boat in the ocean. I'm hoping it's going to work so that you can see it. I put it in a box top, and you take a string and it goes through your boat and you can actually pull it. So I'm pulling it so that it will, there we go, it gets shipwrecked. Okay? So I'm going to put it back down. I hope you will enjoy that. It's a cute little craft, and you pull the string through the rough seas until it tips over and gets shipwrecked. Well, have a wonderful week, and do lots of fun things. Enjoy one another, enjoy your families, and God bless you. Till we meet again. Take care.